What about policy and regulation when you've got so many different companies driving technology faster than ever before? How do we as governments and organizations keep up with that? Well, we don't. I gave a presentation last year to all the policymakers in a very large province in Canada. And we talked about regulation and policy. I talked about something that I called predictive government. Now, we know what this is, right? The exponential curve. The idea that the ideas build on top of ideas, and it drives us up into an exponential growth curve in terms of adoption and sales and more solutions coming out there. This is where government expects progress to be, like on a linear scale. It's like, oh yeah, next year, change will be slight. We're ready for that, right? This is where it actually is. Companies like Uber and Airbnb and whatever, they throw it right up into the exponential curve. And governments are like, what do we do? They have to try and retrofit things, right? These companies will be disruptive at any cost, and I'm going to give you the example of Uber, right? When Uber came out, it was going to disrupt the taxi industry, right? And we understand that that's what it's like. So yeah, here's an app. You can drive your own car, and you can take people from A to B, and we'll do all the management on the platform. You have a great relationship with the person you're driving. They don't have to give you any money. It all gets done through the application. Great. When I go to other cities and I use Uber and then I come back to Vancouver, I feel like I've walked back about 15 years. It's so painful, and I wish that the government here would stop sticking their head in the sand and hoping it all will go away, because it's not. This is a really interesting quote from the CEO of Uber. Cars are to us what books are to Amazon. Amazon just sold books until it came out with the Kindle. And look what Amazon is today, right? This is what Uber's doing. It's looking about total world domination across a number of different areas. Uber Eats, there's actually Uber Eats already in Vancouver, right? Uber Freight, they want to dominate the freight space, yeah? And they also bought a company called Otto, which turns any truck into a self-driving truck. So they want to even remove the cost of humans driving that freight. Self-driving vehicles, they're deploying a lot of these in cities. I think Philadelphia is one of the big locations they're doing tests in, obviously San Francisco. They just signed a huge order, I think, with Volvo, because they know that their future isn't going to be you and I driving an Uber. It's going to be their own fleets, making the money automatically, and a bunch of people maintaining that fleet. And yeah, flying cars. That will probably be a reality by 2020, 2021. In fact, they're looking at tests in LA and Dubai. Crazy, huh? Non-stop evolution, and Uber's not going to stop. If you look at other companies that are also exponential, like Airbnb and people like that, it's all change all the time. It's not the same as it was even last year. Will there be Uber space? I think there will. Right? Why not? Once they start doing commercial passenger aircraft up into the atmosphere and back down, yeah, you'll be able to order it on Uber. It might cost you like $100,000. People with special black credit cards will be able to spend that kind of money, right? But what about government? Government sees this and they're shocked. I actually met with some of the people that got a whole level of new policy put together in Toronto. They won a bunch of awards for it. Fantastic. They worked with Uber, but they had to work with Uber. They didn't tell Uber how the world was going to be. It was this way of working that was never seen before with technology. So this is from Gartner. This is the hype cycle, right? The technology trigger, here's an idea, the peak of inflated expectations. It's like, oh, Uber's a great idea. No one's really going to use it, though. Trough of disillusionment, system doesn't really work. Slope of enlightenment, yes, people are picking up. And productivity, every day people are using it. We're all using it. So government starts to engage, typically, towards the trough of disillusionment. And then, once it all gets productive, they're like, okay, we need to retrofit a bunch of policies and regulations to that world. And this is where it all falls apart. See what happened in London last summer. Transport for London cancelled the license for Uber. I know they're still in negotiations now. But they didn't have anything that could handle the way that Uber was operating. And Uber didn't care. They were going a million miles an hour, changing the world. So that's a problem, right? And policymakers in government have got a big headache. There was even a situation recently when General Motors came out with a new self-driving vehicle that didn't have a steering wheel, it didn't have pedals. There were 16 regulations that it couldn't actually meet because it just didn't even have the mechanisms in the car to meet them. So what happens about self-driving vehicles? Well, you have to go back and you have to clear the way for this new technology to come through. Right? What happens? Lots of meetings and months and months and months, and it slows down technology. We shouldn't slow down technology. We should be responsible and make sure that it's good for humanity, but really, we need to think about a predictive government model. So you start earlier, and you engage the people that are building the technology and the platforms. And that could be multiple people. You build, these boards of people working in self-driving vehicles or, accommodation or, the future of work or whatever, automation in HR, whatever. And then you come up with candidate policy and regulations way before you actually hit that point where people start doubting the technology because it's likely the technology is going to make it through. At this point, you have candidate regulations that understand what the world could be. So you're ready. So that when it gets to the plateau of productivity, you've got best fit policy and regulations that have kind of been tested out a little bit over time. It's a pretty wild idea. But I actually really like this because it's quite logical for me. This is how people build software, right? What's it like? Do a proof of concept. Test a bunch of hypotheses against it. And then once you've proven them out, then hey, here's the operating manual, right? Government needs to be like that. I do think that you can actually have a practical approach to this, and I think what it's about is government solution providers and citizens speaking together, right? Advisory, consultation, and usage of product. And I think that future studies, what I do, futurology, the idea that you can look into the future and understand where the changes will come and the tensions will be, is an important part of this as well. Because there's not a lot of people that do that. People are good at 3 to 5 year projections or strategies. They're not very good at 20-year. So I think you're going to see a lot more people like me in government going forward. In fact,